Namaste, friends. Today I'm going live on this special episode of National Perspective. And there is a reason for this. Today is December 6th. Some people will celebrate it as Shaurya Divas. Somebody will cry as, Black Day for Democracy. And we would hear an outcry about this historic fall of the Babri structure, the controversial structure in Ayodhya, uh, by various voices, forgetting the fact that it was a symbol. It was a symbol of colonization. It was a symbol of inhuman mass murdering, aggression, and barbarism against which the Hindu society revolted through a movement. It was just a beginning of the larger process. And all over the world, such a realization has been taking place. And there are people who are breaking the shackles of colonialism in the intellectual and cultural sphere, which is called as decolonization. So how should we see December 6? Why are we embroiled in the issues of the past? Why bring past movements and instances of aggression now in the present day discussion when we are a secular society? Is doing away with the symbols of colonization going to solve the problems of poverty and inequality? English is the language of knowledge that connects us. So why harp on education in mother tongue? The secular intellectuals usually raise these questions whenever there is a, questions raised about revitalizing Bharatiya Samskriti and Indian civilizational ethos. These questions are nothing but the signs of colonial mindset. What we listen around December 6 and the entire discourse about democracy in danger, secularism in danger from 6 December 1992, this is also a sign of colonial minds that are caught up in the colonial discourse set by the British. The historicity of Rama is known to everybody. What happened in Ayodhya has been recorded by the advisors of Babur. But people who took pride in, denigrating Hindu sentiments, whitewashing the crimes of aggressions from either Afghans or Turks or Mongols, they actually tried to whitewash this entire history. There was a strong legal battle from 1858 onwards. And that battle actually carried on in the court of law, in the political discourse, and in the society. Now, this battle finally was settled down, but there is a significance of this movement that went behind this battle. Why? Because there were certain secular politicians who were making mockery of Hindu sentiments. There were historians who were completely in a negation mode of this history. There was a battery of lawyers who were saying that, this has been a history and legally it can't be proved that there was Ram and there was temple and this is the same Ayodhya. Unfortunately, because of this, usually a very patient society of Hindus got impatient. An entire movement that was built around reclaiming that space of Ayodhya, that movement took a turn of almost a revolt and Babri structure went down. Some people say it was 6 December and that deliberately it was, it has to do with Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar and his, Mahaparinirvan. It was Gita Jayanti, and that's why Kar Seva was fixed, and Kar Seva was fixed much earlier in the hope that by 2nd of December, the court will give some verdict. But because completely ambiguous position of the then central government, car sevaks became impatient. And that's how the entire episode uh, got converted into the destruction of that structure. Now, this is uh, uh, this is a watershed movement as far as uh, entire Indian political process is concerned, but it was also an important movement that shaped India's intellectual space in a significant fashion. We have seen many people who have started seeing the entire uh, uh, movement uh, as from a different prism. And I want to understand everybody that understanding that prism is very important. Unfortunately, Indian intellectuals still today saw Ayodhya and other civilizational issues through a colonial prism. And that's why they branded Hindutva as communal expression. We need to apply the decolonization paradigm to encapsulate the entire Hindutva movement, in which the liberation of Ram Janmabhoomi was a watershed movement. As Pandit Dindayal Upadhyay had said, as long as we are unaware of our national identity, we cannot recognize or develop all our potentialities. British colonialism tried to suppress this very idea of our nationhood. Unlike the Baburs and Ghoris, Macaulay's and Trevelyan's not just politically and religiously subjugated the Bharati people, but also tried to colonize our minds intellectually and morally. Though the aims of two colonizations were identical, the instruments were different. The earlier invaders desecrated and destroyed the places of pilgrimage with the intent of attacking the dignity, unity, and soul of Bharat. The British continued that process more clinically through legal, education, and other means. This long and systematic process ingrained the divisive and degraded self-perception. We gained political independence politically, but the colonization of intellectual space continued. That is why Gandhiji in his Hind Swaraj argued that the foundation that Macaulay laid of education has enslaved us. Hindutva seeks to decolonize our national psyche as a thought movement and goes beyond religiosity. Viewing it just as a political supremacist ideology from a European prism is a completely flawed proposition. Our freedom fighters also expected complete decolonization of our thought process and structures through the freedom struggle. Colonization was a multidimensional and comprehensive process. And therefore, any attempt at decolonization also should address all those dimensions, and the intellectual and academic sphere is fundamental to it. Decolonization has become a pressing academic issue in many British and American universities now. Students are pulling down the statues of icons like George Washington or Cecil Rhodes, considering them as the symbols of slavery and colonialism. There is no need to imitate the same blindly. We have had our own knowledge tradition, the heritage of diverse languages and literature, an ideal combination of spiritual and scientific advancement, and our own economic and business models that allowed us to dominate the global trade for centuries without exploiting others. That is Indian model. We need to revisit that. We need to revisit the same and recontextualize it to the present condition. To do the same, we must get rid of the colonial baggage. Among the Pancha Prana that Prime Minister has talked about for the Amrit Kal, getting rid of the signs of slavery is the most important and essential to realize our true development potential. Strengthening and revitalizing our cultural roots has become more critical while trying to spread the message of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam with the assumption of the G20 presidency. And that's why while talking about December 6, we need to understand all nations are trying to reconnect with their roots. They are trying to uproot the symbols of slavery. The British and American universities, they have become main centers of this intellectual discourse. We also need to reignite the entire discourse of decolonization. And I want to see December 6 as the culmination of first phase of that decolonization, where a mass movement challenge the colonial construction of Indian history. Over the period of time, now there are many things that have happened, but the real changes, what are taking place through national education policy in our education system, in the structural terms, whether we are seeing the Mahakal Dham or what happened at Kashima Vishweshwar temple, all these corridors and the connecting this or revitalizing these civilizational symbols, these all are important. But what is important is setting the objectives and understanding right about this decolonization process without getting perturbed by the Western prisms and Western narratives. We should think, what do we want to achieve through the decolonization process? It is just a precondition for real nationalization. It is a precondition so that our systems, whether judicial system, whether economic models, whether administrative system, whether political system, they are responsive to our national psyche, our national ethos. Ram Janmabhoomi movement was the beginning of the same. And therefore, we should remember, revisit, and historically contextualize December 6 neither as Shaurya Divas nor as a Black Day for democracy, but as a glorious point where Indian society, common Hindus of Indian society, they revolted against the hypocrisy of the colonial masters and the slaves of colonial mindset. And therefore, 6 December should be intellectually celebrated and revisited, redefined as the process of decolonization. I hope you like this analysis. First time I've tried to go live with you. We will continue this discussion. If you like Organizer Weekly's understanding perspective and the way we go beyond news to present certain views, please do like our videos, our social media handles, whether Facebook or Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and keep supporting the nationalist point of view for nationalist news. Thank you. Namaskar.